We must not confuse dissent with disloyalty. We must remember always that accusation is not proof, and that conviction depends upon evidence and due process of law. We will not walk in fear one of another. We will not be driven by fear into an age of unreason if we dig deep in our history and our doctrine, and remember that we are not descended from fearful men, not from men who feared to write, to speak, to associate, and to defend causes that were for the moment unpopular.
Yeah. These are all designed to be eliminated if the corporation wants to eliminate them.
In the Grider's chapter on class conflict, he talks about how the American people are very uncomfortable talking about class structure and their place in it.
Well, there's a lot of research on the class system in this country, and I've read a lot of it, and it kind of boils down to the question of not class systems, but status, and what indicates status, and what do people think about status. And it never gets down to the question of the power and the money elite in this country squashing the rest of us. It never gets down to that. And it also gets clouded up with the notion of, well, implicit in this is unionism. And of course we hate unions because unions are somehow by definition bad, and therefore we don't want to be associated with them. Therefore that's a class, and we just don't even consider a possibility of a class structure being in place.
And they foment class divisions and class hatred. Remember during this election, every time that one of the candidates, particularly a Democratic candidate who was opposing Clinton for the nomination, every time they'd say something about how the people got screwed and just a lot of the things that we find in Grider's book, the media would immediately jump on him and say, oh, he's fomenting class hatred. I saw that all throughout the media.
Well, once again, the media itself is part of the problem. And the media is just one reason we're having all these concerns and these lacks of responsibility in the government. The mass communication is grown and proliferated. We've had a concentration of the media themselves. We've had a growth in the expertise business. The experts are the only ones that know anything because everything's too complicated for the rest of us dumb people. And the think tanks, the Heritage Foundation, the Cato Foundation, the American Enterprise Corporation, the Manhattan Institute, all these so-called expert think tanks are paid for and bought by the corporate and the power system. And in effect, the opinions they deliver in terms of expertise always support the power system. And nothing else really is up for argument because there aren't any other system, there aren't any other experts out there countering them hardly.
What's the matter?
Turning in one badge, one notebook, and one pencil.
Barney, what are you doing?
I'm handing in my resignation as deputy. That's what I'm doing. One gun belt, one holster, one revolver, and one bullet.
Well, now, hold on there. Wait just a minute.
No, this is it, Andy. This is it. One whistle. I replaced the P in it, but I ain't gonna charge you.
Barney, what do you mean you're handing in your resignation?
Just what I said. I'm handing in my resignation. One tie clip. One tie.
Well, now, whoa, just a minute now. Now, before I accept your resignation, I got to have a little explanation here. Now, just ease back and tell me what's got into you.
Oh, this is the last straw, Andy. It's bad enough there ain't any deputying for me to do, but I don't like to be teased about it.
You was teased?
That's right, and by your own son, Opie.
Well, what happened?
I seen him do it. I caught him red-handed.
Well, what'd Opie do?
You don't believe it, do you? Well, I didn't think you would. One cat.
Well, now, wait a minute. I am bound to hear this. Now, tell me, what did Opie do?
He wrote a poem about me on the wall of the bank.
Well, what poem?
Well, I wrote it down. I'd like to offer this as foolproof evidence. There once was a deputy called Fife who carried a gun and a knife. The gun was all dusty, the knife was all rusty because he never caught a crook in his life. Now that's undermining the dignity of the law.
We must not confuse dissent with disloyalty.
Your Georgia, Georgia.
I have heard hundreds of speeches by all kinds of candidates and politicians, but I have never heard a sustained piece of political oratory that impressed me more than the speech Jimmy Carter made on Law Day at the University of Georgia one Saturday afternoon in May 1974. It was a king-held bastard of a speech. By the time it was over, it had rung every bell in the room.
Senator Kennedy and distinguished fellow Georgians, friends of the Law School of Georgia, and...
I was the only reporter there, and I was with Kennedy, and I had no interest in Carter, as they, and no intention of either listening to him or reporting anything he said.
Not paying any attention to me. He was going outside every now and then to replenish his glass of what was apparently iced tea, but was really wild turkey whiskey. And I started speaking from the heart about the defects in the American judicial system.
In general, the powerful and the influential in our society shape the laws and have a great influence on the legislature and the Congress. And this creates a reluctance to change because the powerful and the influential have carved out for themselves or have inherited a privileged position in society.
But what sent me back out to the trunk to get my tape recorder instead of another drink was the spectacle of a Southern politician telling a crowd of judges and lawyers that the source of my understanding about what's right and wrong in this society is from a friend of mine, a great poet named Bob Dylan.
I grew up as a landowner's son, but I don't think I ever realized that the proper interrelationship between the landowner and those who worked on a farm until I heard Dylan's record, I Ain't Gonna Work on Maggie's Farm No More. I ain't gonna work on Maggie's farm no more. I was in the governor's mansion for 2 years, enjoying the services of a very fine cook. And one day she came to me and said, Governor, I would like to borrow $250 from you. I said, I'm not sure that a lawyer will be worth that much. And she said, I don't want to hire a lawyer. I want to pay the judge.
At this point, Carter was attacked by what was later identified as a 48-pound slope.
We had an ethics bill in the state legislature this year, and the largest force against that ethics bill were the lawyers.
I was speaking to a bunch of lawyers, and the reaction among them was one of stunned silence.
Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr., perhaps despised by many in this room, because he shook up our social structure and demanded simply that black citizens be treated the same as white citizens. Wasn't greeted with approbation and accolades by the Georgia Bar Association or the Alabama Bar Association.
He was greeted with horror. Still, once that change was made, a very simple, difficult change, no one in his right mind would want to go back to circumstances prior to that juncture in the development of our nation's society.
Math, Jack, yes, math. But what joy in multiplication.
I read that at one point in time, Bill Gates had a net worth that was nearly equal to the bottom 40% of the United States population. I mean, can you imagine that? I would love to ask him what that feels like.
Oh, I can tell you what he'd say to that. He'd say it's not enough.
If everyone's got a shot at it, right? I mean, if anyone can either become a well-paid servant, in your words, of the commercial oligarchy, or even if they do really well, an oligarch himself or herself, then that's your American dream, right?
Right. Ronald Reagan expressed it very well. He said that his great hope for America was that it continued to be a country where, above all, somebody could always get rich. But then again, Jack, who is the somebody? Could you use a cup of coffee?
Sure.
Louis, you're checking up on me?
No, we're just stopping by on the way back to the city.
All right, come on in.
I will.
Can I get you a drink?
Coffee.
Oh, a Coke, please.
Coke it is.
So, do you eat here a lot?
I've never been here before, Jack.
How do you two know each other?
She's on assignment for the magazine.
Who is she?
That's Barbara Ehrenreich. Well-known essayist, probably one of the best journalists in the country. It's 1998, Jack, a moment of unparalleled prosperity in America. What the chairman of the Federal Reserve called irrational exuberance. Clinton administration's welfare reforms have herded millions of Americans into the low-wage workforce. But how does one prosper or even survive if one makes $6 or $7 an hour? And Barbara's trying to find out how the trick is done. So for the last year, she's been working at low-wage jobs, living in cheap rooms, traveling around the country, working as a domestic maid, as a Walmart associate, as a waitress.
Coffee? Coke?
Thanks a lot.
Barbara, this is Jack.
Hi, Jack.
Nice to meet you.
Jack just graduated from Yale.
Oh.
Goldman's made him an offer, but he doesn't know whether he wants to be in the investment banking business. So I'm taking him on the rounds, introducing him to people in other professions.
Well, I hope you're not thinking of waitressing.
Why, has it been that tough?
Does he know what I'm doing, what I'm up to here?
I told him.
Oh, well, you know, you can't feel too sorry for me, because I'm really a journalist. I'm doing this briefly. But one of the very humbling things for me has been to learn, really, that there are no unskilled jobs. All jobs take skill and intelligence and experience. They're hard. From the first day I started working here, I've been running. And first I was running around after Gail. She's another waitress here.
Okay, Barb, can you take the pancakes to 63?
She'd be explaining how to do things and also telling me about her troubles. She's been living in a van.
So I ended up living in my truck out here in the parking lot from like March to July.
She works full-time, but she can't afford an apartment or anything regular like that. But anyway, it's so much. It's overwhelming. I can't even think about the fact that I may be too tired to get out to the parking lot by the end of the day.
So what was the end result? Can you get by, in other words?
Not in the jobs I've had. Right now, I'm already $100 behind the rent that I need to pay for my half-size trailer in the trailer park. So, you know, even living in a trailer park seems to me a little ambitious at this moment.
But we're talking about the height of the last boom, right?
Yes.
Height of the boom, all boats rising, building a better world.
Well, exactly, in a way.
But not entirely.
Full employment, pretty much,
yes.
At the time. Wages should be technically rising, right?
That's what you'd think, according to law of supply and demand. But management will do anything to keep from having to raise wages, even when there's a so-called shortage of labor. We created a lot of jobs in this country in the 90s, but they're not jobs that a person can live on. And that's what, you know, completely undermines the myth of this great American job-producing economy. If you can't live on it, it doesn't count, it seems to me. It's not that people are even living at a sustainable level of suffering in many cases. They are living in what I would call a state of emergency. Not enough to eat in many cases, inadequate housing or no home, inadequate child care that really has them nervous all day about how their children are.
I'm just having a tough time because you don't see this. You don't see things being as bad as you describe them.
You don't see any of this. You don't see it, Jack, because you hang out at Goldman Sachs or wherever it is you want to go to work.
But they have philanthropy, public service. A lot of those people devote millions and millions and millions of dollars to building houses in poor communities.
Philanthropy. Don't tell me about philanthropy, Jack. The real philanthropists in our society are the people who work for less than they can actually live on, because they are giving of their time and their energy and their talents all the time so that people like you can be dressed well and fed cheaply and so on. They're giving to you.
flour, wipe the counter, make the beds, and stack the shirts, and sell the bread, or work their wages, save for coffee, take orders for delivery, do the floors and greet the guests, and
wear the name tag on my chest.
Nickel and dime, oh, nickel and dime. There's no free lunch or overtime. We just get nickel and dime.
We just get nickel and dime.
Now 3 shifts at $2.25 plus tips will be $1.50. And then 2 days at 80 makes $1.60. That's $3.10 a week. I got $6.50 in rent, and then $1.10 in gas and utilities. 2 for food and groceries leaves $25 a week for me. Nickel and dime, nickel and dime. There's no free lunch and no free time. We just get nickel and dimes. Wow.
Someday, and I wouldn't make any predictions as to exactly when this will happen, people are going to get tired of getting so little in return for their work, and they're going to demand to be paid what they're worth. There will be a lot of anger when that day comes, and I think there will be strikes and disruption, but the sky will not fall, and we will all be better off for it in the end.
Now it don't always seem fair to me, but I'll get through it if I try.
I don't call this prosperity, 'cause we're just barely getting by. Until my daughter breaks a bone, or what if my old Buick dies, or Verizon disconnects the phone, and they mess up my whole credit line. Nickel and dime, nickel and dime.
Oh, for Christ's sake.
There's no free lunch and no free time. There's no ladder I'm gonna climb. I'd rather lead a life of crime than just get nickel and dime.
Don't take it too hard, Jack. Remember Voltaire. The comfort of the rich depends upon an abundance of the poor. It's a law of economics as old as supply and demand.
Look around. Oil companies guzzle down billions in profits. Billionaires pay lower tax rates than their secretaries. And Wall Street CEOs, the same ones who wrecked our economy and destroyed millions of jobs, still strut around Congress, no shame, demanding favors and acting like we should thank them. Does anyone here have a problem with that? Yeah, well, I do too. I do too.